Welcome to the video tutorial on editing and finding CSS in the XT framework. In this video, I'm going to show you how to simply find CSS statements, edit them, and change them in our XT framework. So the first thing that we're going to look at is our influence template here. So let's say that you're interested in changing this color right here, the superpowers color. Now, if you're familiar with our framework, you'll probably know that we do have base colors inside of the template manager. And I'm going to assume here that this is tied to a base color, but let's go ahead and find out how we find out where this color is defined in the template framework CSS. So I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to inspect element. And how I do this is I'm in Safari right now, but just about every web browser at this point has an inspector. If you right click and you don't see inspect element, you might have to go up to your preferences in whatever your browser is and enable the web inspector. If you already know what web inspector is, you can probably fast forward through this area. But if you don't, this is going to be one of the greatest things that you've learned today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to inspect the element here. And I have right-clicked on it to inspect the element. And now my inspection window has popped. And this is going to show me over here on the left-hand side all of the markup in the template. Here's our region 1. As you see, as I scroll over these, it highlights the area. So right here, I'm at the span 6 superpowers. And I've got the superpower H3 here. And we can see here, here's the super and the powers. So I look over here on the right and I see that, okay, we've got a font size of 52 on this. And it's template 1 CSS, superpowers. So right here, if I hover over this, you're going to see this is actually calling it from the module itself, from the mod JoomlaXTC News Pro, templates, influence, superpowers, user 19, template CSS 1. So that's telling you directly where you can go in and edit these values. But we're looking for the color. So as you can see here, it says right here, all of the H classes have this purple color. So you can see this is in style 1, on or around line 71. So before I move over and show you how to check that and edit it, let's look at another feature here. You can do live editing in here. So this is really good for prototyping or checking some things. Let's say I want the font size to be 32. Okay, there it is. It just shrank. Let's say that I want this font size to be 64. Okay, now let's say that I want it to be black. There we go. Now it's black. So right here inside of Web Inspector, you can go ahead and find out where the CSS is. You can do live editing to change it and see what font size you might want. But now let's find out where this is. So this said it was in the CSS style 171. So we're going to close out of Web Inspector here. Now we're going to go to our template manager. And instead of being in styles here, we're going to go to templates. And we're going to select influence, details, and files. So from right here, we can look at all the files that are inside of the template. So we're interested in the CSS files. So it gives you a full list of the CSS files. Let me explain what the CSS files are real quickly. The default CSS holds the default CSS for Joomla and for some of the base typography and for the menu and things that are just default in the template. The grid CSS holds all the structure for the layout, including bootstrap overrides and bootstrap. RTL CSS is the right to left CSS that's called when your site is going right to left. It's only called when the site is going right to left. The styles 1 through 4 are the color scheme and the images that are used in the template. So you can think of it as the default is just the global, the grid is the structure, and the styles are the styles. And then finally we have the typo. The typo CSS holds all the typography styles. So we were going to look at style 1 on line 71. So we'll click on this CSS file, and Joomla will open up an editor for us here. And we can actually edit inside of Joomla. If you're not familiar with this feature, it's a really handy feature. One thing to keep in mind though is there is no undo. So it's probably best if you want to modify this area that before you start, you just Control Alt All to select all and then copy and paste it into an editor somewhere so you have a backup of it. So we're going to scroll down here to around line 71. So right here it says all the H classes have the color of PHP params H color. So this is how we do the parameterization inside of the template manager. You can control colors, backgrounds, typography, just about every aspect of the template can be controlled from the template manager. In order to do this, we're passing parameters to the CSS. So what we're saying here is that this color, we're just echoing the parameter for the H color. So right here, if you want to take this out and hard code it, you can. But if it says parameter, that means there is a parameter for it. So let's go ahead and close out of here. And close out of the templates and go back to styles. Let's go to influence. And let's go to styles. And let's go to colors. So you see we have some base colors here. We have our button colors. We have our typography colors. So our heading class font color, right here, here's the purple. This is the H class. So you can change that color right here with a color picker in the template manager. So now let's take a look at the correct way to edit the CSS inside of the templates. And by meaning the correct way, I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and edit any of the CSS and make sure that it won't get overwritten if you update to a newer version of the template. So let's close out of our styles here and let's go back to the templates. And we'll go back to influence. And we're going to go to the CSS and let's go ahead and let's just go to style 1 here. Now, any of these parameters that you set inside of the template manager, those will be saved, and if you upgrade the template to a newer version, if there's a newer version with a bug fix or a newer version with newer features, these won't get overwritten. They're going to be saved, and you won't overwrite anything that's inside of the parameter values. So when it comes to changing things the right way, let's say that you want to change the base color buttons here, that you're using all light buttons and you want to have a different font color. So this is hard-coded. So if you update the framework and it overwrites the CSS files, it's going to overwrite your work. So instead of changing it here, the best thing to do is to copy this out right here. We're only going to take the color, so I'm going to copy the CSS, the opening bracket, and the color. I'm going to copy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this file. Now I'm going to open the CSS up here and I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to name it template. And I'm going to select the file type CSS, so that means it's going to be template CSS. I'm going to put it in the CSS folder and I'm going to create it. So now you see here inside of the CSS, there is a template CSS file. This CSS file is going to be loaded last in the chain of the CSS. So it will be the last thing, so anything that's in style 1 CSS, if it's already in style 1 CSS, template CSS will override it, unless of course it has an important in there. You may find a few importance inside of our templates. You might read online that importance are not good, you don't need importance, but in certain cases where you have, say, Bootstrap that's being loaded, and it's even being loaded before the CSS files, Bootstrap is taking over. Or if you have another extension that is conflicting with a class, you might need an important. But we're not going to worry about that right here. We're just going to say that we want our base color button 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to be color 000 black instead of white. And then we're going to go ahead and close our bracket. And now we can save and close. So we're going to go to the home page. And right here, you're going to see that the base color buttons are all black now. And that concludes our introduction to finding and editing CSS inside of the XT framework. We hope you found this video useful, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.